Gail, you were just thinking about your English, but what I
Yeah,
am
very
more...
much. I'm very concerning about my English, so can you hear me?
Well, I am more concerned it's not your English, it's my English.
So now I'm worried about my Japanese too. Okay.
Well, I'm worried about my Japanese. I've got arigato.
Yeah, arigato, thank you. That's great.
Your English is great, Shigeo.
Yes, yeah, Fabiana, thank you. Gracias.
But it's it really is a point, like half of our audience are English as a second or third or fourth language. So it's a really important point for English as first language people that we speak in a clear way. So like Shigeo and Fabiano, you're a great reference for the rest of us in speaking clear English.
Yeah. So that's why I'd like to found Nuffield Japan to join the kind of to join the international people to have a conversation with, in English, of course. But it's going to be a good experience for me.
And how's Nuffield Japan going now?
Right now we got one big investor, Deutsche Bank. It's like a Rabobank. And we pushed the first scholar to the CSC 2020. So it might be a Nigel. Are you a scholar of 2020?
No, I'm a 2014 scholar.
Okay. So you didn't attend the CSC at this time?
No, I didn't. No, I was invited. But...
All right. But it sounds great for him. He is growing green onion close to Kyoto.
Yeah, that's something interesting, Shigeo, because here in Brazil, we also, just like Arch in USA, we are starting in Nuffield, and we are learning a lot about Australian experience, New Zealand experience, on all the other countries. Right. And the real issue we are getting now is to getting more investors to improve this, because we all know that this program is really amazing when you see farmers around the world and you can learn with them and you bring it back to your country. And so it's really amazing. We just need to create things to create more marketing to people, get more to know more about Nuffield. That's really interesting. Yeah, how is the Nuffield in the USA, Archie?
It's really taken off, I believe. We're really getting a lot of interest in it and starting to get a lot of sponsors or a lot of people and firms interested in sponsoring. It's just with the whole virus that, you know, this coronavirus has kind of set everything back and put everything on a standstill. And we've seen a lot of investors come back and kind of say, you know, because it is such a tough time and money is becoming even more tighter than it already was. I believe it's still in the process of and still in the making. But I feel very confident that, you know, in the next year or two, we will have even more states sign up. We'll have some more scholars from North Carolina, and I think it will take off a lot in the U.S.
Yeah, that's something interesting, because what do you think, Nigel? Because we can see this pandemic as a crisis or an opportunity. How do you see this can be an opportunity to Nuffield in Australia?
I think the opportunity has been, Fabio, is exactly what we're doing with learning how to connect a lot quickly and without the time to travel. Nuffield Australia is already sort of doing the webinars with the 2020 scholars, and so far it's been working really well. And in one way, they're getting a lot closer as a cohort. And I think by the time they start traveling, maybe next year, yeah, they'll be quite experienced and knowledgeable on how to do it. Whereas in 2014, it was yeah, quite different, where we just went out and did it and found our own way. So it's got a lot more professional, I think, in the last couple of years.
Yes, I think it was very interesting because now we are getting more success on making virtual meetings with suppliers, with customers, and it's very interesting because sometimes you ride 2 hours to a 30 minutes meeting that you could have done by any of these tools we have today. That's a really interesting opportunity. Yeah.
And Archie, how's things going in North Carolina with the COVID-19? Is everything in lockdown, or things are starting to open up?
Well, everything's starting to open up a little bit, but for the most part, we're still on lockdown. It's most farms are very being very cautious. The governor, as well as the Commissioner of Agriculture, have kind of, we haven't seen it, but it's been talked about that if you have coronavirus on your farm or any of your employees contract the virus, then ultimately they will come in and do it by executive order, basically shut your farm down for 2 weeks, and everybody has to go into quarantine and everything be sterilized. So we're kind of being extremely cautious, and if you go through that, that's almost ultimate bankruptcy. So we're being extremely cautious.
It's 1 minute to start. Sally, now you have the direction.
Sorry, now I have to what?
The direction.
Ah,
The direction.
the vote.
Yeah, 1 more minute. Good luck to you, Sally, and I'll be here if necessary.
Yeah, great, Erickson. We all appreciate it.
Thanks, Erickson.
I think this might be the longest minute of all of the webinar.
Yep.
And let's go.
Right. Oh, this feels like a movie set. But well, since it's 7 o'clock, well, it's 7 o'clock here in Brazil. Welcome from Brazil, where I am. This is the first of Nuffield Talks worldwide webinar series. So it's an initiative that we started in Brazil a couple of weeks ago as part of ways to keep connected, this amazing network that we have. And then we thought, well, why just stop at Brazil? And we wanted to bring in some voices from the Nuffield network in other countries. So thanks to the 4 of you for coming on board. I guess we've got some people coming in on the let's just have a look. Coming in. Oh, I can't see how many people have joined already, but in honoring the people that are here on time, I think we just keep moving. So, you know, yeah, this is something new. I think what's really nice, it's an example of Nuffield for me, is that we embrace the spirit of trying new things. So for everybody that's watching us, you're part of the inaugural, the first of these events, and it's the first one that I'm working as the facilitator for. So for me, it's part of like lifelong learning, that we just keep trying new things. And one thing that's wonderful about the Nuffield Network is that we have the spirit to talk honestly and openly about our opinions and encourage diverse views. So I hope tonight, for me tonight, that in this webinar that we have some really good questions and we can get some really nice and different responses back. So for the people who are in on the audience, if you're going to use the chat function, just send a little hi, and maybe you can just say what city or what state and what country you're from, and then we can get a little bit of an idea on who's in the audience. And at the same time, well, from the registrations, I saw that like over 50% of the audience is farmers, which is great, and from 13 different countries. So it's definitely a worldwide webinar. Just to start off, can the four of you just introduce yourselves? Just say a quick hi. Thanks, Nigel. We'll start with you.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name's Nigel Corish, a grain farmer in Australia. I live in Gundawindi, Queensland, which is on the east coast. I've been farming with the family since I left university in 2004, grow a number of different crops, and did my Nuffield scholarship in 2014.
Thanks, Nigel.
What time is it there, Nigel?
Fabio, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, so yeah,
great.
Beautiful time of day.
Thank you. My name is Fabiano Paganella. I'm from Nuffield, Brazil. I'm really happy for being here. I live in Vacaria, Rio Grande do Sul, the southern state in Brazil. And now it's 7 p.m. And we are at farm. We already harvest the summer crops. And now we are waiting for start to planting wheat and rye.
Thanks, Fabiano. Archie.
Yes, my name is Archie Griffin. I'm from Washington, North Carolina, and Eastern North Carolina on the east coast of the United States. I farm with my mother and father, and yeah, I did my Nuffield study in 2018, and right now, Fabiana, it's what, 6 o'clock in the evening, and on the farm we are full speed ahead, planting soybeans, cultivating, spraying, and in a couple of weeks we'll be harvesting wheat. So.
Thank you. And Shigeo.
Hi everyone. Good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu. I'm Shigeo Maeda. I'm talking from Japan, and my place is Northern Ireland in Hokkaido. And now it's time past 7 a.m. And our farm just finished seeding sugar beet and popcorn and spring wheat. And nice to talk to you here.
Fantastic. And we're just getting some hides in, mainly from Brazil at this stage. So can you see how many people we've got already joined?
Sally are watching at this moment.
10. Okay. Okay.
20.
Oh, 20. Okay. Yeah. So to the audience there, just get your fingers typing. Just say where you're from, probably the town and also the country. So we can just say a quick hello to you. Now, what we might do is jump in. So to give a bit of an idea, to paint a bit of a picture, each of our 4 very interesting panelists here have put together a couple of slides that they can give a little bit of a context of their farms. Everybody's a grain farmer, before we open up for questions from you. So the idea is that this is going to be a really dynamic, relaxed webinar focused on your questions and just a general conversation. Let me just introduce myself. My name's Sally Thompson. I am Australian, but I've been living here in Brazil for 6 years now, and I'm part of the founding group of Nuffield Brazil. And I'd also think it's really, really important to just acknowledge the investors that have helped Nuffield Brazil start. That's Tia Cref, Grupo Bom Futuro, New Farm, Biotrigo, Stara, and Hibersolum. So let's get this moving. We have, so the first one is, we'll just get an introduction from about your farm here from Nigel. Thanks, Nigel. Oops, sorry,
Yeah.
Fabiano.
Yeah.
You go, Fabiano.
Yeah. Okay. So that's my family farm. It's called the Lion Farm. Is the place that there you can see the location just in the southern of Brazil, and we have 1,800 millimeters of rainfall. We have the most rainfall of you all, I think so, and well, we had 200 hectares owned and 1,800 hectares rented. And in the summer we have soybean, 400 hectares we plant early in the season, and the other 200 hectares we do after wheat. So we have a double crop. We can do double crop because we have good rainfall. We make a rotation with corn, and we have also regular beans for human consumption. That crop would give a good price and a good money. At the winter, we can have all kind of winter crops, but we have focus on wheat and black oats and rye. And we have a lot of also cover crops. We use a lot of I don't know, I don't remember the right name now, but vetch and nabo. I don't remember the name now.
Turnip.
Okay. How to say?
Turnip.
Turnip. Okay. And pasture on the rented fields, on the leased fields, we plant only in the summer. In the winter, we give pasture for the landowner. Well, we just, if someone wants to learn a little bit more about us, there is a video at Farm from Yara. There is a digital platform that we talk a little bit about our history. Next, Sally. Oh, sorry. Can you come back? That's my family, my wife and my 2 kids. And we use a lot of digital farming also with satellite imagery and soil sampling and this kind of things. Okay, Sally, thank you. Well, just to have a little bit of numbers, farming in Brazil represents 20% of the Brazilian GDP. We didn't stop it with the coronavirus because we were still moving. We are in the harvest season, and in the countryside we were not severely impacted by coronavirus. We really didn't have so many issues. Here we are looking at other cities, huge cities with real issues. And despite of the coronavirus, you still have issues with climate, pests, disease, weeds, succession, and others that are common to all of us. And the big challenge in this time was manage people to stay calm, just like Arch talked about the consequence if your employees or you have coronavirus. So it's important, and I think it's essential at this time. So Ali, you can see some cover crops in the middle, in the center, upside a harvest, soybean harvest, and in the bottom it's corn. Okay, Sally. Well, the question of this webinar is preparing for the next 24 months on a grain farmer's view. So what I make 3 points of business priority: pre-farm, before the gate, we call here in Brazil, before the farm. So it's the issue that we have all the year, making better negotiation with suppliers and check about inputs availability with these issues about coronavirus. On farm, it's still improve yields, increasing soil fertility, and managing each year more cover crops and mix of cover crops. And post farm, I think it's really the big issue is risk management of price, exchange rates, and the coronavirus. I was looking today, the exchange rate of last May, in May 19, it was 68% raised now. So it's a lot of variation in the exchange rate, and it impacts a lot our business. And what the practical impact of Nuffield has on my life and business, I put something, I think it's funny, but it's copy and paste farmers and farm practice that are having success and adapting to my environment. Because I think that many times we didn't have to create something. We just need to look the right people and get the right practice, and maybe modeling that person, that businessman, that farmer, what he's doing. So I think it's very interesting. And the other importance of this network that is Nuffield is get information all around the world about the farming status, what's happening there, to understand the markets and to exchange ideas how we can improve our farm. Sally, in the time you sent to me, I think it's everything I could do. It's there. Thank you.
Thanks, Fabiano. Nigel.
Yep, thanks, Sally. So I'm involved in a family farming business in Queensland, Australia. I'm a fourth generation farmer. We've done the succession plan, and now I'm farming out by myself, but my parents are still involved in the business. You can go to the next slide, Sally. The farming business has about 3,500 hectares of dryland cultivation and 450 hectares of irrigated cultivation. The main irrigated crop is cotton, grown in summer. The main dryland crops are wheat, barley, chickpeas, sorghum, and they're grown in, the wheat, barley, chickpeas are growing in winter, and the sorghum's growing in summer. The annual rainfall is 575 millimetres per year, but unfortunately we have been suffering drought for a number of years in Australia. Put it in perspective, we only had 160 mils of rainfall last year, so our yields and production was about 20% of what we normally produce. That sort of setting us up for the next 24 months is obviously production, yield, and making sure that we can get back to some kind of average. With the COVID-19, it's certainly going to affect our business in the next 24 months through market demand and obviously market volatility. We've just recently seen Australia lose out on a trade deal with China in the last 2 days. So that's probably going to have a $500 million export of barley to China, which they've just put an 80% tariff tax on it. So, which is quite disappointing, or very disappointing to the Australian grain growers. If you want to go to the next slide, sir. So here we can see some of the machinery we use. We're on 12 metre widths with 3 metre tractor centre. So we're on a fully controlled traffic system. We use a mixture of owned machinery, but we also use contractors at harvest time. And we run 4 full-time staff on the farm. So that's about it at the moment, Sally.
Thanks, Nigel. Shigeo.
Yeah, good morning. Before I start my introduction, let me use the microwave popcorn. This is our product, and this is our island, Hokkaido. Give me 1 and 40 minutes. Here's the microwave. And, 1 and 40 minutes. Let me starting my introduction. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shigeo Maeda, who runs grain farming in Northern Island, Hokkaido Prefecture, Japan, as the president of my farm. 45 years old, 1 wife and 5 kids. Our island, Hokkaido, is cool climate, 850 millimeter rainfall per farming season, and cold winter from December to March. Hokkaido is fairly well known as farm table area, so good image of majority Japanese people. Also, I'm a chairman of Nuffield Japan Associate, which found last year with Japanese Nuffield mate. So I got opportunity to join here through Nuffield farming program. And next slide, please. Okay. As I think globally, Japanese grain market is highly relied on imported grain from USA, Brazil, Australia, and Canada. So thank you very much for feeding us today and tomorrow. On the other hand, what I can act locally as a small piece of farmers, it will be necessary to produce something customer perspective products, which means adding value products, and try to make food culture with their customers for sustainable agriculture, including 24 months. Next slide, please. Yep. So in my farm, 120 hectares property, we have been growing several weeds and several flowers to 60 bakers nationwide. Also, we grow popcorn and sell it as a microwave popcorn like this. You can get it by Amazon Japan, okay? And we started to grow sunflower as new crop rotation and designed 5 hectares sunflower maize by GPS. Try to feed local people agriculture with fun. We will sell sunflower seeds to bakers. So my philosophy is enjoy farming makes happy table. Okay, here's the ring the bell. And can you see this? Okay, this is the popcorn time. Here we go. Thank you.
Thanks, Shigeo. I can smell it from here.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Thanks, Archie.
Yeah. So as you can see from the pictures, that is our farm, and that's my mom and dad. And you can see a map of the U.S. that kind of shows where we're at. In the other picture, you can see what is our main crop here on the farm, and our main profit maker on the farm is tobacco. Next slide, please, Sally. On the farm, we produce sweet corn, field corn, wheat, soybeans, tobacco, and asparagus. All of our soybeans and wheat are grown for seed, and they all go to, eventually they end up being cleaned, and then the following year they're sold to other farmers in the area or the region to be able to plant for eventually go to feed. My study was done on growing in uncertain times, mainly looking at transformative production practices to optimize farm resources and margins. I know it's not up on the slide, but on our farm employees, we have 5 full-time employees, and during our peak season during the summer, we can be up to 15 plus. Own land, well, you can go to the next slide, please. On our farm, I guess the own land versus rental, we roughly own about 2,000 acres, or farm 1,800 to 2,000 acres, which is about 800 hectares. But we also have a tract equivalent in timber. That's where we've tried to diversify. In North Carolina, a little quick facts, the biggest crops are sweet potatoes, tobacco, poultry, eggs, swine, and turkey, and strawberries. We rank 1, 2, and 3 across all states in the U.S., which is pretty significant. The only other state that has as much diversification and ranks right up there with us is California. The location and demand for feed is what really drives the grain commodities in North Carolina. If we didn't have the poultry and the swine and the turkey, it would be very hard for us to compete with the grain grain producers in the Midwest. Just for a little bit of information, the rainfall in the U.S., I know everybody else has mentioned rainfall. The rainfall in North Carolina is roughly 45 inches average, or 1,143 millimeters. And as you can see, you know, the corn in the U.S. is mainly dependent on ethanol feed and export markets. And North Carolina, it is a very subtropical climate. The summers are extremely hot. At times it can be averaged about 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm not sure exactly what that is in Celsius, but we almost every day we see 90 to 100% humidity. And the winters we're no stranger to snow at times. And yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Thanks, guys. So let me just get my screen. So just to kick off then, the topic that we posed to you was what is your businesses doing to prepare for the next 24 months? And this is an open question, so it's, you know, with or without the big C word that's been affecting our lives. So if you'd just like to highlight one priority that you're really going to focus on in the next 2 years and quickly give a response. We'll start with Fabiano.
Yeah, my big challenge is improve the yields because of costs, and we can do much more about getting more low costs, and so this is the challenge: improving soil fertility, working more with cover crops, and making the basic perfect on the farm. That's the challenge to getting good yields. So that's the big point to me is this, because with income, with money, we can think about green, we can think about people, we can think about anything else. So that's my challenge at the farm.
Thanks, Fabiano. Nigel.
Yep, Sally. So for us, I mentioned that we're just coming out of drought. So the priority for the business is to get back into some sort of normality. Debt levels are quite high, so we've had to increase our borrowings to get through the drought. So the priority is for us to repay the loans we've taken out over the last number of years. To do that, obviously, production is king, so therefore yield is king. So real emphasis on keep improving yield in production and therefore gross margin off our areas. So the main, we've really focused on weed control. So we've purchased a camera sprayer to reduce our chemical herbicide bills. So we've decreased our herbicide bills by 80% by purchasing that machine. And also just making sure that we keeping our fallows nice and tidy. So when we do get rainfall, we're getting our most water use efficiency out of the country so we can increase our yields that way. So that's our priority for the next 24 months.
Thanks, Nige. Archie.
Our priority for the next 24 months is to kind of transition our farm from I guess a linear to a circular economy, so to say, or 180 degree to 360 degree production cycle by utilizing regenerative agriculture practices aimed at minimizing and recycling inputs and waste. We plan to do that through efficiency by means of rapidly adoption of technology and new technology that comes about, as well as differentiating ourselves and diversifying on the farm. We've got to find ways that we can continue to be profitable and make the most out of our profit margins.
Great, thanks. We've got some questions to come back for you that I've just picked up. Shigeo, what's the priority on your farm for the next 2 years? You're on the mute.
Sorry about that. As a farmer on the ground, I have to focus on building up the soil fertility stuffs, and top priority as a farm manager is to build up a relationship between customers and buyers. Wheat production is only about 600 tons, and as a sale as private flour to 60 bakers nationwide. So during the summer season, a lot of bakery owners stop by my farm and exchange information. What kind of varieties they need. So I have to listen up their voice or demand. And second priority is that, let's see, winter season. How to kill the winter season, non-cultivating season from December to March. So in my case, microwave popcorn must be a second big income sales from my farm. So we would like to introduce a second microwave popcorn factory. So that's my thinking to next 24 months.
Great, thank you. There's a question here from Murilung, and I think since it's about the US, Archie, maybe you can answer first. How do you think that China and the US trade war will affect agriculture in your country? And there's a second question there, which is how will the COVID impact on that?
Ooh, that's an elephant in the room. The China and U.S. trade war, it's going to drastically affect agriculture in the country, in the U.S. And I don't think it's going to be settled in a 1 to 2 year deal. I think it will continue for years and years going about. Primarily, I think it will affect our soybeans and our corn, but not only our animals, our livestock, our pork. China now owns stake in Smithfield Foods, which is based in North Carolina, and which is the largest pork producer in the U.S. With their stake in that, and with them owning it, they have a direct impact on our grain economy, our grain markets, and the prices that we see. They don't care if the products and the grain comes from North Carolina. They're going to go directly to wherever it's the cheapest. And as for the COVID impact, I think it's going to only multiply that effect of the Chinese and U.S. trade war. You're already kind of seeing that with the shutdown of the meat processing plants and the shortage of meat in grocery stores around the U.S. When that happens, it's the demand for grain and feed automatically drops. And I think we're only just in the beginning. I think this is a multi-year, something we're going to have to deal with for well into the future.
Thanks. Fabiano, maybe you could comment, being the other country that's a key soybean supplier to China.
Well, I think we always can see anything as crisis or an opportunity. So I think in this time is being a great opportunity to Brazil, because when we look at the ships getting out from Brazil with soybean, there's a lot of demand from China to Brazil. So at this moment, we can't see so much the impact of this trade war. So I think we are in a good position at this time, and it's a fight of big dogs. So I think Brazil needs to do his part, because the demand will still grow, and I don't see a huge problem with this right now.
Thanks. And Shigeo, as a neighbor of China and an importer of food, how do you see the trade war affecting Japan?
Trading war between agricultural products, I can't expect any grain products. It doesn't matter because Japan imported a lot of grains like Australia, US, Brazil, not from China. But if I talk about the vegetables, onions is a kind of a huge impact because we accepted a lot of importing vegetables from China, but the price of onion and carrot is sharply decreased in Japan because because of COVID-19, that effect to all of the restaurants, restaurants were have been shut down. So that's why there is no demand. So a lot of onion farmers are struggling with low price. Now is the situation.
And Nigel, you mentioned a bit about the barley. Is there something further to add there?
Yeah, Sally. So it is a hot topic at the moment. Obviously, trading with China and the emphasis on that we probably supply too much to China at the moment, and they might have to find some other markets to sell our products into. So there is an opportunity with that. There's just, unfortunately, China's been the one for Australia. Obviously, location very cheap to transport our products there, and they've taken such a big demand for Australian products over recent years. So, but it is an international market, of course. So Australia's watching very closely the trade negotiations between China and the US, watching obviously the oil price and watching demand for ethanol in the US decrease, and watching where maize and corn growers in the US go with that. And then obviously locally in Australia, controlling the things we can control at the farm gate, but obviously then trying to negotiate with international customers and international markets. We had some success with Indonesia, where we've been able to do a trade deal there to supply about 500 million tons of grain, feed grain into that market. So yeah, we have losses, but we also have opportunities.
Thank you. And a question here from Deborah Simones. Most of you mentioned improving profits as a priority. What is your main strategy to reach it? Shigeo, because you're in a bit of a different situation with value adding, would you like to comment on what you're doing on your farm?
Yeah, we farmers are concerned about kind of yield stuff. So everybody try to get the higher yield to select the certain varieties against the diseases or something infections or weed pressures. But as a small farmer, small country, we need to have more big idea to close to customers, consumers. So PowerPoint is this product is end of the product of agriculture, right? So it's easy to cook and it's easy to access to the customers directly. So I can get adding value. Adding value means for me is customer perspective product. And also here is a flour. This is a flour. So this is a wheat seed. So we can't eat it directly with this. Neither this. And bakers have to send our message from our field. So this is what I'm trying to do right now. So I'm not kind of concerning about the higher yield. We have a basement of the food industry. So So that's what I'm trying to do for a decade.
Fantastic. And
sorry, sorry.
no, it's brilliant. Thanks for the samples. Brings it to life. And Archie, you're talking about maintaining the competitiveness in the USA and some diversity. Do you want to have a comment on that a bit further?
What is the main strategy for our farm?
Yeah, improving profitability.
So I'll probably bring about a very different viewpoint than most. I've always believed that we've kind of been duped into the belief that high inputs equate to high yields, and high yields equate to high profits. On our farm, we're focusing more on making and maximizing the most of the technology that we have, starting to focus more on not just a broad scale generic view at, or I guess 30,000 viewpoint, 30,000 foot viewpoint of production of wheat or corn or soybeans. We're starting to break it down to not only a field profit margins, but per acre and per half acre tracks. We're focusing on implementing and really trying to grow the value of the soil and the profitability of that soil through implementation of cover crops, and trying to really just build up the organic matter of that soil. We know it's a long-term process, but it's on our farm. We're not here for short term. We're in it for the long term, and we're in it for the legacy. I guess we all as farmers are in it for a legacy, so that we can pass on to the next generation.
Thanks, Archie. We've got a question here from Bernard Kiep that we'll send to Fabiano to comment. If you can discuss how you see the future of organic farming versus what we call today traditional farming.
Yes, Sally, just comment a little bit about the other question, because Archie, we are the same boat, because in Brazil we need to improve yield, but we are looking at the next 24 months, maybe work more with biological solutions and strategies. And just like Shigeo, we are cropping some wheat varieties that make a flour more white. They are whitener wheats. Biotrigo is one of our sponsors, and this is one of their wheat. And also, just like Archie, just producing soybean seeds and everything you have on the farm, we try to add value. Well, and about organic farming, yeah, that's really something interesting, because I already produced the organic soybean 20 years ago, and I didn't have a very good experience, because the chain is not we're not organized in that time. So I didn't have a good experience, and the organic marketing now is a niche, just a niche, maybe 3 to 5% of the whole market in the world. So I don't see as scale grain farmers go to organic in a short period of time. What we are doing, there is a lot of sustainable association farmers in Brazil that are working with less input soybean production, just using only biological fungicides, insecticides, and I think this is more close to grain farming in Brazil, and maybe I guess in the world.
Thanks, Fabiano. And Nigel, what's your view on organic farming versus conventional farming?
Certainly, Sally, we've seen the organic demand really increase in Australia in the last few years, particularly in Australia for fresh vegetables and fruit. And obviously, traditional versus organic. I definitely agree with Fabio that there's a niche market, and for the Australian, particularly the grain production, is all export to those, I guess, traditional commodity markets. So I think producers would need to go down that circular economy if they wanted to go into the organic market and find those niche markets to sell into. There has been a huge interest in regenerated agriculture in Australia, so very similar practice to what Fabio and Archie were talking about. So huge shift into cover cropping, biological fertilizers and so forth. So definitely there is an interest to move away from traditional, what we call conventional agriculture, into more regenerated agriculture.
Thanks. And a question here from Erickson Cunha. How is the dollar affecting the negotiations in your countries? So who wants to start with that? Archie, let's go back to you.
All right, well, just to touch on the organic topic just right quick. I think that organic will definitely play a vital role. And I think it will definitely fill the void and fill the space that certain markets won't. But I feel like I always go back to, it's an old saying, but somewhere in the world, someone is complaining about GMOs while eating a seedless grape. I don't know that organic will always be around. Well, I think it will always be around, but I don't know that it will ever take the place of conventional. And as for the next question you were asking, sorry, I drew a blank there. What was that, Sally?
Yeah, not a problem. How is the dollar influencing the negotiations in your country?
Oh, wow. Well, before the virus, the U.S. dollar was very high. And when the U.S. dollar is high, agriculture in general in the U.S. is terrible. From an agriculture standpoint, you never want to see your own country do bad. But when the U.S. is struggling, in a sense, is when U.S. agriculture is thriving. It's when we are the best, because we suddenly become much more competitive around the world. Everybody knows now that agriculture is, and because of technology and the connectivity of the world, it's a global market. Everything can be traded and at your fingertips within a week or so or less. So when the U.S. dollar is very high, we can't compete with other countries like Australia or Japan or Brazil or the UK. I mean, it's tough. So.
Great. Well, let's hear from Brazil then. How is the dollar influencing your negotiations, Fabiano?
Yes, at this moment we are very competitive in the grain market around the world, with corn and soybean mainly. And in the case of the wheat, it's very good because with this high exchange rate, Brazilian farmers will receive more money for their wheat. And the price in reais, our currency here, is really amazing for soybean and for corn and also wheat. So we are in a very good position right now. The problem is buying the inputs that make some cost increasing, but we are in a very good position because we export a lot of it, and we are, as Archie said, we are in a very competitive position right now.
Let's hear from our other commodity producer, Nigel, and then we'll go to Shigel for the value add comment. Sorry, you're on mute, Nigel.
Thanks for that, Sally. It's been great for Australian farmers to see the Australian dollar lose value to the US dollar. So at the moment, we're trading about 64 cents to the US dollar, which is really advantageous to those markets, export markets for us. I think 2 years ago it was trading as high as 80 cents, and before that it was at parity in, I think, 2012. So yeah, really good, and gives us a great advantage on the international stage for us to have that low Aussie dollar at the moment. Thanks, Sal.
And a comment from the input side of things?
Quite good. Obviously, probably machinery costs have been the biggest factor when we see the low Aussie dollar. Fertilizers and chemicals have been quite good. We've been a huge shift to see a lot of chemicals coming out of China, which they've been able to do quite cheaply, which has been good for the Australian grower. And obviously, fertilizers, the costs have been quite good, particularly since the price of oils dropped. So then the fuel prices obviously dropped as well with that oil price. So yeah, costs of inputs have been quite good the last 12 months or 2 years, but before that they were very high. So.
Great, thank you. And Shigel?
Yeah, as an aspect of currency, I have no idea about that. But for importing the stuffs from the USA, now the Japanese currency is kind of strong. So that's why it's for me, I'm thinking about importing the popcorn machinery from the United States. It's a good situation right now. But exporting company in Japan, there are a lot of companies very much struggle with the price and the currency right now.
Okay, thank you. And we've got a question from Renato Watanabe for Fabiano. Do you believe that we will be able to implement traceability in the long chain products like soybean and proteins?
Yes, I think so. That's something that is increasing here in Brazil. But as a farmer, I expect to receive something for doing this at this moment. That's not something that I need to expend money and then receive anything for that. At this moment, that's what I'm thinking about. So we need to receive the right payment for that improvement of our farm or something like that, because it's very easy to people ask to certify your farm and expend a lot of money, and what you receive for that. So, for example, I have some customers for my company that they are cropping conventional soybean, and they receive 20% more on the price without certification. And I know that other farmers need to certify to export soybean for Europe or maybe Japan. And well, I think something that will grow on our Brazilian market, but we need to see as a demand of the consumer, or something that will give some add value on our grain or at the farm that make it work. So that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you. And a question from Thiago Massatelli. After several supply chain collapses because of COVID-19, there might appear to be some protectionism or increasing nationalism in some strategic areas, such as in food and agriculture. His question is, do you feel this in your country? Is it regarding import or export, or more happening at a community feeling level? Let's hear from Shigel on that one. So
yep. In Japan, like in the United States or like worldwide, the flour at the supermarket, disappeared from the shelf because a lot of customers try to make a bread, but behind that, a lot of there is too much wheat in the milling company, so there is sufficient to sell their product. Like a packing processing is not enough right now. So I'm not afraid about the supply chain or collapsing at the supermarket, especially this is a foodstuffs. And also, if Japan have a really trouble with the trading, like a lot of like Russia or United States or Brazil, Australia, one of the countries might stop exporting the grains. It's going to be a serious trouble in our country. But right now, I don't afraid of that.
Thank you. And Archie, what do you see happening from some supply chain challenges for the US? And
so I think after COVID-19, we've definitely seen in the US, I guess an influx in nationalism, and more so that at the community level, we realized that we've been way too reliant on China and our export markets, and especially in wheat. We've been able to import wheat from other countries, and our export markets, when you look at it, almost all of our soybeans go overseas. And I think we've come to the point that we now realize that we have to build up those markets and start insulating ourselves, so to say, and protecting ourselves, so that if something like this does happen again, we don't have a complete collapse of our entire economy and our agriculture industries. I think that's kind of what you're seeing now with COVID. I mean, it's because of when you shut down borders and you shut down transportation and trade and ports, we can't get our products out. So we have a huge supply. But when the supply goes up in general, as large as the US and is in the agriculture industry across the world, it's when the supply goes up in any country, the price around the world goes down. And what are you supposed to do? You're just supposed to throw it in the trash and keep right on going. As producers, we can't just throw it away. I mean, that's money in our pockets.
let's hear from Nigel.
Yep, certainly with the supply chain issues, Sally, Australia's been affected with imports and exports. Importing from China has been very difficult, obviously with shipping and also plane coming into Australia. A lot of imports have been stuck in that quarantine zone, or that pretty well added an extra month to get products like fertilizers, chemicals out of China into Australia. So particularly at the moment, everyone's planting winter crops across Australia. So there has been a delay and a shortage of supply for inputs to allow us to plant. From the exporting side, huge issues with the fruit and vegetables exporters, and also the meat going into China, Japan, obviously with the planes restricted to flying, and the cost of freight, particularly going to those countries, has almost tripled for those guys. So it's huge implications for those guys at the moment. So, and Sally, I'll just touch on the traceability. Fabio was talking about it before. I agree 100% that we need some sort of sustainability or traceability payments for producers to encourage us more to do it. In Australia, obviously the sociability or social license to farm, particularly around glyphosate, has become a huge issue in the last 12 months. So one way producers in Australia to combat that is to allow traceability programs in place to see what's being put on the crop, and making sure that those products, particularly glyphosate, we can continue to use into the future.
Yep, good point. Fabiano, did you want to say something?
Yes, Ali, about the supply chains, that I think countries will restart to think about food as national security, because food is peace, and that's our role, that's our legacy in this road. That's our legacy. And imagine if we have issues as with freight, with transportation, with borders closing. And so countries, I think they will see it more close and rethink about the position. I think that in the future we're going to have some chance about what is going to happen. Just like Archie said, Brazil need to import wheat, and our luck is that it's from Argentina. That's our neighbor, but I could imagine if they were not our neighbors, what would happen. So I think it's a key thing to that governments should think about.
Thank you, Fabiano. We've got one question here from Mateusz from Poland, and it's a different topic. It's probably our last question about Nuffield. Given that Nuffield is all about traveling, which is almost impossible in the days of COVID, how do you see the future of your scholarships given these long-term potential implications? Nigel, could you comment on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely, Sally. So quite difficult to do an international travel scholarship with the travel restrictions and bans in place across the world at the moment. But what we found, particularly in Australia, that webinars and Zoom have had a fantastic opportunity to keep connecting with farmers across Australia, but also across the world, like we're doing at the moment. So the true value of Nuffield is still there, and the opportunity to learn from each other and keep improving agriculture is still there. But unfortunately, there's nothing like being on someone's farm in a different country, learning directly in their footsteps. So there's disadvantage with that, but I can still see a huge advantage of the Nuffield scholarship program continuing on in these circumstances.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Nigel. So we've got kind of to the end of the time, everyone. But so just to finish up, I'll just remind everybody that this broadcast has been recorded, and it will stay available on the Nuffield International Farming Network YouTube channel, so you can pass it on to other people that you think would like to watch it, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because that way you can stay connected when we do different webinars in the future. As Nigel said, there's a lot more happening in the digital space within the Nuffield network, which is probably 40 countries and 1,800 scholars and over 100 investors around the world, all interested in discussing what's happening and what's not happening, and what we need to do in our in our businesses, in our lives, and for our sector. So just to finish up, can we get a really quick comment from each of you? Just a final remark. Start with Nigel.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Once again, it's been an absolute part of the talk to farmers around the world, learning from each other and finding what everyone's doing on their farms and how they're improving their business and farming farms across the world. So thank you.
Thank you. Fabiano.
Yes, I really appreciate to be with you guys. That's really awesome to discuss and see. That's amazing that farming around the world has some the same issues, just change some aspects of that. And there is a question, Sally, that I just want to take a little moment. What from Victoria? What relationship do you see between environmental stewardship and farming? Is there one? And I think there is a very good sentence. The farmer who is in the red does not think of the green. So that's something important. We need to have money to think on the green. And as farmers, we are doing a lot as biological solutions. We are working a lot on it. And of course, we want this. We want farmers really close to environment. And that's something important. In all the planet, we are trying to make the consumer look to this. In Brazil, for example, no-till, that's really important. So I just let this question for they give some comments, because I think it's very important to make the real image as farmers. We really care for the environment. That is really something important, but we need to have money to put on it to get some results on the environment. Thank you, Sally. Thank you all. I really very happy for being here.
Thank you, Fabiano. And Shigeo.
Yep. Thank you very much for inviting me to put me in this panelist. And thank you very much for all of the panelists and Sally. And we farmers always focus on environment in a sustainable farming way. So my farm has 120 years history. So I want to keep it more to the next generation. So a Nuffield relationship is one of the best key, because like Sally said, it's been over 1,700 scholars from all over the world. It means it's a huge world town book from anywhere. So there must be a good answer, good example in a book from each scholars. So we from Japan, we'd like to push more Nuffield scholars to the next 2021. So see you soon, and thank you very much again. Arigato.
Thank you. Arigato. And Achi.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to thank y'all for having me on here, and I also want to thank Nuffield in general for allowing the U.S. to join their network in recent years and bring us into the conversation on a global agriculture scale. You know, with all this coronavirus talk and everything and lockdown and quarantine, yes, this is short term, or yes, this is a big deal, but we have to remember that this is a short term. This is not forever. This is not, you know, something that's going to last well into the future. And I guess when this is all over, we have to realize that Nuffield will still be here. And you know, Nuffield, if I can say one thing that it does, Nuffield in general gives you wings. It gives you wings to step out of your comfort zone. And I always like to follow that with a quote from Roy Bennett: is, you know, it's only after you've stepped outside of your comfort zone that you begin to change, grow, and transform. And I think that's what Nuffield is all about. So thank you.
Thank you. What a wonderful note to finish on. And just for anybody that doesn't know, so every Nuffield scholar writes a report. It's a contemporary practical report on their findings, and they are available on the Nuffield International website. There's a tab there called Reports, and you can search by keyword on any topic, and it will come up with a list of all of the reports that are to do with that keyword that you put in. So thanks again, Nigel from Australia, Fabiano from Brazil, Shigel from Japan, and Archie from the US, and everybody for some great questions and a really pleasurable event to be part of. So thank you, and we'll have another Nuffield Talks in a month or something like that. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sally. Bye.
Thank you, Sally.